Aloha family, my name is Arielle and I get to share the Devo of the week with you. And today I'll be sharing out of 1 Samuel chapter 30. So I want to give you some brief context for this passage. Saul is king of Israel. He is still trying to kill David. So David and 600 of his men find solace with the king of the Philistines, King Achish. And he tricked him into believing that he'd be loyal to that king and that he'd fight for him and defend him. And King Achish even gave David and his 600 men and their wives and their families the city of Ziklag to live in. And so when the Israelites go up against the Philistines to fight, King Achish wants to bring his loyal servant David along with him to battle. And all of the Philistine generals are saying, no, he cannot come. Isn't he the one that says, they sing about this, Saul kills his thousands and David his 10,000s. They said, absolutely not, he's not allowed to come. So King Achish is so kind of sheepish and so remorseful when he tells David that he cannot come, and he sends him back to Ziklag. So that's where we pick up in chapter 30, verse 1. It says, 3 days later, when David and his men arrived home at their town of Ziklag, they found that the Amalekites had made a raid into the Negev and Ziklag. They had crushed Ziklag and burned it to the ground. They had carried off the women and children and everyone else, but without killing anyone. When David and his men saw the ruins and realized what had happened to their families, they wept until they could weep no more. David's two wives, Ahinoam from Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal from Carmel, were among those captured. David was now in great danger because all his men were very bitter about losing their sons and daughters, and they began to talk of stoning him. But David found strength in the Lord his God. Then he said to Abiathar the priest, "Bring me the ephod." So Abiathar brought it. Then David asked the Lord, "Should I chase after this band of raiders? Will I catch them?" And the Lord said to him, "Yes, go after them, and you will surely recover everything that was taken from you." Now there are two things in this brief passage that I read that I want to point out. The first thing, let's go back to verse 6. And it says, David was now in great danger because all his men were very bitter about losing their sons and daughters, to say the least, and they began to talk of stoning him. So David is physically fatigued. He just made this 50-mile hike with his men, and they come and see that their city is just gone. All the people are gone. We know that no one was killed, but he has no idea what happened to them. So his wives are gone. His city is gone, and his men and all their families are gone. And so he is in a lot of personal anguish and turmoil himself, not to mention the responsibility that he feels for his men. And then, in the midst of this, 600 warrior men turn against him because they want to blame somebody, so they might as well blame him. And what he does, he doesn't take up his sword and defend himself. What he does, in the end of verse 6, it says, "But God found strength in the Lord his God," which means that he sought strength from the Lord his God. What do we do when we are in struggle or turmoil? Do we go to mind-numbing TV shows or constant scrolling that can go on for hours? Or do we get on our computers and Google everything, that all the treatment options and all the diagnosis, all the things that could possibly be wrong? Do we do that? Or do we seek our God and allow him to strengthen us and bring peace and rest to our hearts? Let's go on verse 7. So after he found strength in the Lord, verse 7, he said to Abiathar the priest, "Bring me the ephod." So Abiathar brought it. Then David asked the Lord, "Should I chase after this band of raiders?" So this is mighty warrior David. We've seen him as shepherd boy David, but now for the past few years, he is mighty warrior David. He's been very successful in his military pursuits. And his first response was to go to the Lord and ask for direction. My first response would be, let's go. And I know nothing about battle. I know nothing about fighting anything. But mighty warrior David, his first response was to seek the Lord, his God, for direction. And I love the follow-up question. Not only did he seek the Lord and ask, should we follow after the band of raiders, but he says, will I catch them? To me, that shows the personal relationship that he had with God. It's one thing to seek direction as a leader, to seek direction knowing, especially growing up in Israel, that that's what you do. He is your God. But to ask the follow-up of, will we catch them? Of course, the Lord God, he can share whatever he wants. But I appreciated the closeness in which that shared. It reminds me of in Hebrews 4, verse 16, it says, as Christians, that we can come boldly before the throne of grace. We don't have to come as the lowly sinner. Once he's cleansed us, we are his child. And we can come boldly before the throne of grace because he is our Papa. And here, the Lord said, of course, you will surely recover everything that was taken from you. And I encourage you to read the rest of this chapter because, of course, it happens just as the Lord said. They recovered everything. And the twists and turns it takes is just really exciting. So I encourage you to read the rest of this chapter. But I want to leave you today with a prayer of Hebrews 4, verse 16. I pray that you will come boldly to the throne of your gracious God. There you will receive his mercy and you will find grace to help you when you need it most. Blessings, family.